She's with Cowboy Ventures. I think Noah is somewhere in the audience as well. There he is. So I met Aileen and Noah.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Hi.
So I was working on Product Hunt, again as a side project. This is around the same time as I met Roy, I think, when I started chatting with Noah, and then we met up, and you ended up investing in Product Hunt. Thank you. And
Not enough. It should have been way more.
yeah.
It's one of my big lessons learned for 2014.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe there'll be more rounds. We never know. But first off, do you want to introduce yourself and give a quick background on Cowboy?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everybody. My name is Aileen. I'm the founder of a fund that focuses on seed stage investments called Cowboy Ventures. We're a startup ourselves. We're very small. We're a team of 4. My partner Noah is over there. We've been around for about 2.5 years. Our first fund was $40 million. We focus on investing in software-oriented startups, both consumer and enterprise. And after I started Cowboy in 2012, after being at Kleiner Perkins, which is a firm that you may have heard of in particular this week. I started at Kleiner Perkins in 1999, so I spent 13 years there as a full-time investing partner. And 2 of the years there, actually, I kind of took a part-time leave, and I was the founding CEO of a company that Kleiner had invested in, which was a digital media company called Denu. It's now called RMG Networks. And that was a venture-backed startup where we raised like a $20 million Series B, and I had to hire and fire lots of people during a very challenging economic time, and bought a couple companies. And so I feel like I've been fortunate to have both kind of startup experience and experience working with lots of great founders and startups.
Great. So I'm just looking at the Twitter feed here for questions. So I'll be
Oh,
pulling
really?
in
Okay,
questions as they come. You can tweet at me, Hoover, if you have any. Jordan Crook says lucky. She's jealous, I think.
I love Jordan Cook. She's awesome.
She's fun. So I'm going to ask the first question, actually. What do you think about the investment space right now? What has changed in the past few years?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about crowdfunding and Kickstarter and those things with Roy, which has certainly changed the way people can raise money.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think this is actually like a super exciting time for founders and entrepreneurs and consumers and customers. I think as an investor, it's a very challenging time. It's probably one of the most challenging times I've seen since I started about 15 years ago or 16 years ago because of valuations. Like from a return, like my job, if you found a company and you raise money, you're going to have investors, right? And you then become a fiduciary of your company, and you're kind of taking on an obligation with your investors, depending on what valuation they invest in, that they have to get a return. That's why they're investing in your company, right? Same thing for our fund, is we have investors, and my goal is to deliver what we call top quartile returns, right? Where it's like best in class of our fund vintages. We want Cowboy Ventures to be the best. And right now, the market is so aggressive that people are doing preemptive rounds, they're doing aggressive rounds. Like oftentimes before there's much data or there's much customer validation, oftentimes there's no revenue, and companies can be valued at $70 million, $100 million, $200 or $300 million with no revenue, right? And not even that much technology, and certainly no IP. Right? And so as an investor, having to take on more risk than ever before, with bigger dollars than ever before, with very unclear exits. It's not like the M&A market is on fire or the IPO market is on fire, where companies are it's not like Yahoo or Google is buying a different company every day for $500 million and then it's a guaranteed win. So I think it's a really tough time, but it's a really exciting time because so many cool things are happening in so many categories, and I think that there is true innovation and true disruption happening.
Yes, I would agree. I mean, we see a lot of products on Product Hunt, and some of them are just side products, some of them are companies, and you see a lot of really creative ideas. What's great is, and this is a very quick tangent, is that it's so much easier to build many different types of products and technology than it used to be before, and you can try new things and more ideas can sprout. Most of them will not work out, but that's fine. At least you can try.
But by the way, I think we're investors in Product Hunt, so we're a little biased, but I'm starting to get emails from people who are trying to build like Product Hunt for X, or Product Hunt for the real world, or there's Product Hunt restaurant, I haven't gotten that one yet, but there's all these people who are basically kind of riffing off of the Product Hunt concept, and I think that that's actually, that's a sign that you guys are building a brand and a platform, and that you've really, you're doing something special, so I think that's very exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I like seeing those. They're always fun to see what other people are trying. So Niall, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, has a question. How do you help your investments, your startups? do you give them engineers? Do you help them with marketing? And also more generally, how do you think VCs or the investment space should be assisting and being competitive? Because in the seed stage especially, there are a lot of investors out there. There's a lot to choose from if you have traction. How do you differentiate, and any thoughts on how that's changing?
I wish I could say, like, we have a secret storehouse of engineers, and every company gets 5. It's awesome.
Wait, you didn't tell me about that, because I could use those.
That would be the coolest.
Yeah.
I think we help in lots of different ways. So I think we're a unique team in that, like, I have a lot of experience being a traditional investor, and there aren't many people at seed stage who have worked at a traditional venture fund. And so I have a lot of experience understanding how your Series A investors are going to think, how your Series B investors are going to think, how your Series C investors are going to think, and also, like, I've just seen thousands of pitches, and also thousands of companies go through ups and downs. And so I think we have a unique perspective both in knowing kind of what's coming down the pike and helping you prepare in terms of who do you need to hire when, how much should you be willing to pay for those people, and how can you make sure they're the right people, who are the right first customers, or what conversation should we be having about our go-to-market strategy and our customer selection, around our acquisition and our retention, or about our business model. Like, we have a lot of experience having seen a lot of things. But I also would say, I think because we have so much experience, we are also actually extraordinarily patient. Like, I'm not expecting everything to go right every day. Like, founders have awesome days and bad days, like awesome weeks. Sometimes some companies have awesome years and shitty years, and that doesn't mean that your company is bad. And I think, like, being a founder is hard and lonely and challenging, and my husband is a founder also, and I was a CEO. Like, you have days where you think it's going to be awesome, and the same day you can think it's going to be completely crappy. And you want to have people who you can trust and confide in, who understand that it is a journey that has ups and downs, and aren't going to panic on you or make you feel like they don't want to spend time with you or are not going to help you if things aren't always going well. And I think that's really important. That's a choice. Like, there are certain firms who only spend time with stars, and that's a strategy, and it can be maybe a very profitable strategy. That's not our strategy.
Yeah, I forgot who it was. Somebody on Twitter actually used the term sine wave to describe what it's like doing a startup. And every other day feels a little bit more stressful, and especially when you're looking at those real-time analytics. Today's down from last week, and why is that? Is everything crashing? And sometimes you have to pull out, I believe, and look at the long-term trend and see where it's going. So Max actually had a question regarding fundraising, and if you're a founder, if you're raising money, let's say at the seed stage, just as an example, do you have any strategies or advice from a founder's perspective on how best to raise the money that they need from the right people?
Right. What's your advice on that? You did a good job.
My advice? Well, I was really fortunate. I mean, my advice, there's different strategies. NYC actually provides a lot of guidance on this, Y Combinator. One of them is making sure that you reach out to everyone at the same time. I mean, frankly, you do want to have some competition. You want everyone fighting to get into the round. And by doing that, by reaching out at the same time, you do build that FOMO effect.
Totally. FOMO, like, I don't know if you caught that or not, but, like, I have to admit that a lot of investors are driven by fear of missing out, or FOMO, right? And there's definitely an element of, like, the heat and light and the kind of, like, momentum and scarcity value that you want to create around your startup, that someone feels like there's a sense of urgency. They have to make a bid, otherwise they are going to miss out. That's definitely a thing.
Yeah. So moving on, Sarah has a really good question that I would like to touch on even more at this event, is the international side. Do you invest in startups outside the US? Right. And then in addition to that, what are your thoughts on these emerging tech startup hubs across the world?
Yeah, I think again, it's really exciting. We don't invest outside the US. I think seed stage, like, raise your hand if you guys are if you're a founder out there. Okay, so you're basically all founders, right?
That's a lot.
And raise your hand if you're seed stage. Okay, so you're a lot of seed stage. So, like, this is your riskiest time, right? This is when you know the least, you have the least money, you have the least people, you have the least traction, and, like, the whole world is your oyster, right? Or your source of distraction and frustration. And so this is where things are the hardest. And I think that's where having a small group, not 25 people or 15 people, but maybe, like, 3 to 5 people who you can really count on, who are, like, on your team. They don't work at your company, that you're part of your pit crew. You can call them at 9 o'clock at night, or
I like that pit crew. That's nice.
Like, 7 in the morning or on Saturday, because you're not sure if you should fire somebody. or there's a hot candidate that you really want to close, but they have an offer from Dropbox and Stripe and someplace else, and you want some help in like making them feel confident that they should join your team. Or you want help on it, you have a big customer pitch and you're not sure if it sounds good and you want someone to bounce off. Like, it's a very, I feel like it's a local business where, like, that's where we take pride in being there for our founders and being that sounding board, that mirror, like, where you can do your dry run with us, like, you know, or we'll work together and sit down and go through your Series A pitch 7 months before you need it, so that we know what metrics you have to hit before you run out of money. And so I think it's really hard if we were based here to invest in a company in China or Israel or the UK, or because we can't do that. You know, I need to be able to like drive over to your office and help with something.
So your team is relatively small. You have a lot of, you call them ninjas,
Yeah.
helping and assisting the companies. You do a lot of events, but...
Which I feel bad, actually, because like I'm a kind of a feminist, right? And I'm like, as you know, I'm not shy about talking about all this weird gender bias stuff. And that, like, I read a study that ninja is a very like manly word. It's kind of like not necessarily female-friendly word, but... So I hope that's not
never
offensive.
occurred to me, but I can see that perspective. How are you thinking about, since you described Cowboy Ventures
Yeah.
as a startup itself,
Yeah.
how are you thinking about growing the team and longer term expansion?
We're not planning on being big. You know, we're not trying to build the next Sequoia or Benchmark or Kleiner Perkins. Like, we want to be a very high quality shop and team, and with a very kind of curated group of founders that we work with. But I hope that we actually never get huge. You know, it's a choice, right? It's but we're choosing to stay small and personal and like, 'cause you get scope creep, right? Like, you know how that works with products, right? Like, you wind up adding more people, then you say like, oh, maybe we'll do a couple Series A's. Like, oh, maybe we'll make the fund bigger. Like, you know, I've been fortunate to have worked at a big fund, and I also know how the numbers work with big funds. I think it's really hard with huge funds to deliver great returns. A very, very small number of people can do that. When you do the math, a smaller fund has a better shot of delivering better returns. And this is a people business. It's a relationship business, right? Like, when you have 15 people or 20 people in your firm, somebody has to be the CEO, someone has to manage all those people. And at Cowboy Ventures, our goal is to spend as little time on overhead as possible and as much time with founders as possible.
Yeah. Great. Well, anything you want to mention before we wrap up? Anything? What we should talk about before you leave is what is your focus? Because Cowboy has a Life 2.0 is the way you described it. Focus and also why? Because many investment funds have a certain area of focus, but why is that?
So we are generalists. So we're not like only big data or only network effects. Like, those things are great, but we're generalists. We're about 50% enterprise, 50% consumer. And like, the tie that binds most of the things that we invest in is what we call Life 2.0, as Ryan mentioned, where there's things in your real life, whether it's your work life or your personal life, that are being changed or made better in some way through new software, right? Like, and you could use this lens had we been in business at the time, like, you know, Pinterest, for example, right? For decades, people have been tearing stuff out of magazines and pinning them on their walls, right? Pinterest is a better way to do that, and it makes it like much more shareable and easy to do and discover. Evernote is a Life 2.0 company, right? I used to take notes copiously in notebooks. Now I take everything in Evernote. And so there are a lot of, Uber is a Life 2.0 company, right? People have taken taxis and black cars, but Uber just made it easier and more accessible and more liquidity. So most of the things that we do are things where there's a real life equivalent or real life analog, but it hasn't really been changed dramatically through new software, and that new software can change these things dramatically. So and the other thing I'd say is, if you had to make a list of the companies that you wish you had started, or you wished you had joined really early, or we wish we had invested in, a lot of those things would not have been something that I could have had a thesis about and said, like, that's what I want to invest in. Like, I want to invest in Twitter. Like, there isn't really a thesis that you can have a general, like, be open for business and say, like, I'm looking for new forms of communication, which we are. But like, you have to be open for business, and entrepreneurs have to think that you're going to be really helpful and just tell you what their ideas are, because entrepreneurs are the people like Product Hunt, right? Like, Product Hunt started out as something that wasn't like a humongous thing, right? It was something that you had an instinct about, and you just started it, and it's kind of evolved over time. But it's not something that I could have had like a shopping list for. Like, I'm looking to invest in something like Product Hunt. It's really about the founders coming up with an idea, and for you guys deciding that we're a great fit with you.
Yeah, and actually we have Aura from Yo coming on later, and which is very kind of slightly controversial actually, in that it's such a simple product, and it's not something that necessarily looks like a VC-backed company, but it's an experimental and brave idea, and people were willing to back it. You know, there needs to be room for people to try new things and people to invest in those ideas.
Exactly. Yep.
So anything you want to mention, Aileen, before?
No, I'm just happy to be here. I hope you guys are all super successful, and please let us know if we can help.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you.